We're here today with Herman Senor, who's seeking re-election to the Ward 2 seat on the Springfield City Council in the April 2nd election. We appreciate you being here today and invite you to start by providing an opening statement that explains why voters should give you another term.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. Herman Senor, currently Ward 2 Alderman, lifelong resident of Springfield outside of a stint at college and then 4 years in the United States Navy from 1984 to 1988. Married, 3 children. One of our daughters is a lawyer, one is a chemist who presently both reside in Springfield, and my wife and I have a son that's currently overseas playing semi-pro basketball. We have 2 grandchildren. My mother's still alive, living in a house at 14th and 1420 South 16th Street, where she's resided since 1963. We have deep roots in the community. I have a sister that was in politics, Candace Trees, and the rest of our family grew up in Springfield, went to the various middle and grade schools and high schools, and we are very enthralled and have a lot of roots here in Springfield, Illinois. Ran for politics because I decided my wife and I made a conscious decision to move back to Springfield and give back to the community. There are a lot of things in Springfield that we've done and a lot of things that are yet to be done because Springfield is a growing place, and hopefully we can keep it growing and get more people interested in working here and staying here. We have a good school system, but we want to improve upon that school system so people will look at Springfield and want it to become their home and want their kids to be educated in our school system. With that, I will move forward and take any questions.
Okay, thank you. You are the current holder of the seat on council. You're the incumbent, but one of your challengers is the person who held it prior to you, Gail Simpson. So what have you done during this term that demonstrates you have been more effective than she has?
We went out. We've had some outreach. There are a couple of businesses that I'm proud that have started up in Ward 2. There are a lot of businesses that have started up in Ward 2 downtown, which sometimes we don't make that connect that Ward 2 currently comes all the way up to 3rd and Capitol.
I think you're right.
On the north part, and the southern part is Stevenson and Taylor Avenue, right there where the Walgreens and the CVS are. And there's a lot of various components of Springfield that live in between there. I think Ward 2 is one of the most diverse wards. We have a lot of challenges in the ward that I've been dealing with. Homeless is a problem, and we've, of course, the city council and Juan Huerta, we worked on that by opening up shelters and providing places in time of need, especially last week when it was so cold. Getting people to open up businesses has been one of the challenges, and I've had a couple of people that have stepped up and done that. We've toured the neighborhoods and talked to people, knocked on doors, and there are a couple of new businesses that are going to come into Ward 2. One on Martin Luther King in the old Constructs building. We're going to open up a roofing place there, and then there's a couple of others that are looking to open up on 11th Street, and with the extension of 11th Street out to UIS, it's going to open up a brand new marketplace for 11th Street. We're looking for developers to come in there and develop their corner. There's a permit for a business, permit request for a business on 11th and Ash that we've been exploring. There's one on 11th and Laurel that we're exploring to look to open up. And also with the Stanford Street extension, it's just going to provide more traffic. And also when they get the underpass finished at 11th and Ash, that'll provide for more traffic, more visual sighting for people to walk, drive through the neighborhood and see the possibilities of them opening up businesses also.
You've maybe touched on this a little bit, but what would you say are the pressing issues facing Ward 2, and how do you want to continue to address them?
One of the biggest issues we have are vacant lots, and the city of Springfield, for some reason, we're into the real estate business because there are a lot of vacant lots that we own and homes with lots with homes that are dilapidated on them. And one program that I've asked the mayor to look into is that we can get those properties sold to the people that live next door to them, as like for annexation lots. A lot of those people take care of those lots now. A lot of the residents take care of the lots by cutting them, and they're very interested in being able to purchase them. But with the process that we go through now, it's kind of an extensive process, and it takes them a while. It takes the lots a while to get on the rolls to be sold. because we have to do that in conjunction with Sangamon County. So if we can cut the red tape out there so that make that process easier for people to buy the lots. And one of the caveats, if you buy the lot, it has to be for residential purposes. It won't be for you to resell and
Okay.
market it out. And it should be for home ownership also.
Would it be to like expand their own homes or to be renter? What are they telling you about?
You could expand your own home, or you could use that lot next door to you just as a buffer space.
Okay.
And once we get those back on the tax rolls, and those people will pay property taxes on it. Right now, the city's taking care of those, and we have to pay to have those lots cut. So it's a burden on the city. If we can turn those around and get them back, they'll be income producing properties for the city.
Historically, those have been smaller lots?
Yeah, they very are small. If you a lot of those are, if you drive through, most of those are in between 11th and 18th and Cook and South Grand. If you drive through there, you'll see that most of the maximum footage is 60 feet.
Right.
So it would preclude a business from coming in there, but that wouldn't stop someone with a good idea to come in and put a small business on there. But we would want those for residential use.
For residential,
Yes, sir.
primarily.
And another problem is we have low income, so we need some way to produce more jobs and to produce good income producing jobs. So that, and we need residents to want to get themselves engaged in the process. We've asked people to come to the city council so they can see what's going on, and we want them just to get engaged with the city. We have one business that's expanding that I'm very proud of, Ruby's Funeral Home. She's in the process of expanding her business, so that's going to be a plus where she's going to, I think, add about 10 jobs to her present business there at 16th and Washington Street.
You're talking about economic development right now, so that is a big issue for the city in general. How can the city go about doing a better job of attracting businesses here?
That's a $64 million question. As you know, according to the Sangamon County Regional Planning Commission, the city in the area has experienced negative 2% growth at the last study that came out. We have to find a way to retain the population, to increase our population. And one of the things I've been doing is working with AARP, Mr. Andre Jordan, to see what steps we can go input to retain our population. As a matter of fact, I attended a conference in Charlotte, North Carolina, just on that very fact, is how can we make Springfield an age-friendly living community, which I introduced a resolution this summer to that effect, to move us toward, when we build things, to build them age-friendly. And that doesn't discount any of the other population, but with our seniors, there's a lot of resources that we lose when they leave. We lose income resources, we lose knowledge, and we lose sustainability, because if we can get that population interested in staying around, then it would work in reverse, because then we can get people to come here at an earlier age, and then they'll know they have something to look forward to when they reach the retirement age. And reaching retirement age wouldn't have to mean moving to Florida or California or Arizona. So we can come up with something that Springfield has to offer to keep them here and hopefully combat the weather aspect of staying in Springfield when you retire.
We don't have that polar vortex every week in the winter.
No, we don't, but when it comes in December and January and February, it hits.
It does. Okay. Regarding economic development, the Senate board has been critical of some actions the city council has taken regarding that. We're specifically thinking of the Ferguson Booth building.
Yes.
The gentleman who wanted to build out by the lake with his company at the old marina site.
Yes.
We've been very critical. We'd like to ask incumbents when they come before us a chance to kind of explain their votes on that and why they took those actions.
The Ferguson Booth building, that was already put in motion before I got on the city council. My vote was strictly to give a businessman a chance to redeem himself. He was already in the middle of the of the project, and if we cut him off and take his legs out from under him, what will other developers look at, or what will other builders look at, and how will they think if they want to do business with the city of Springfield? It's already cumbersome for builders and developers to get a project going, but since he had it going, I felt like let's give him a chance. Let's see if he can work those other things out, because the project in and of itself is a very good project. I think he got in the middle of it and found out there was some other things that he wanted to do, and he didn't stop and come back to the drawing board. He tried to do that in the middle of the project, and obviously it didn't work out for him. But if we can get somebody to come in and take that over and finish it up, I think it'll be a very good project, because we always need residential space in downtown Springfield, and I think that's one of the goals, is to bring more people to live in downtown Springfield so we can create an atmosphere of want. And I remember growing up, I went to Springfield High School, and I would ride the bus downtown in my transition. And, we had movie theaters, we had bowling alleys, we had the game rooms, we had the Kmart, Hardee's, McDonald's, the CVS. I can remember all those things being in downtown. So what can we do to get back to some semblance of having people traverse downtown and enjoy downtown on an everyday basis? And that's one of the reasons why I voted for that. And the other project you mentioned was the building out at the lake. Well, as you know, sometimes forces of nature are more great when forces in numbers, and the people that live out there didn't feel like they wanted anything to come out there that they weren't familiar with. So that was just a vote in respect to the people that live in that area.
Would you be opposed to any business opening on the lake?
No, I would not.
What could you foresee opening there?
Oh man, I would like something that would. First of all, let me back up. If we could get the lake cleaned up where we can have recreational activities inside the lake, i.e., swimming.
Okay.
I used to swim when I swam at both Bridgeview Beach and at Center Park. I remember those days vividly. We have family cookouts where we would go and enjoy the whole afternoons at the lake. So if we could somehow get the lake to a point where you can enjoy the swimming there, and then I think if we did that, then it would open itself up to other businesses coming out there. You always want boating activities on the lake, so if there's some type of an additional boat, recreational jet ski, but I think if we can I can't hammer this home enough, if we could concentrate on getting that lake cleaned up to a point where it will be allowable to go in and swim again, businesses would build off of that.
Okay. Since we're talking about economic development, the city has contributed to the new Land of Lincoln Economic Development Corporation. How do you think they're doing so far?
Mr. Eric, I think he's hit the ground, and he's opening it up, and I sat and we had a meeting with him, and I'm eager to see him put his words into play. It's always going to be everyone has to pitch in on this economic development, and he has to get business owners and the everyday person involved so we can it's basically marketing Springfield so we can bring businesses here. And everyone has to be a good spokesman for Springfield. If we don't go out and speak well of Springfield, well, businesses and developers aren't going to want to come and do business here. So it has to be a whole food selling project for the whole city of Springfield.
Okay.
So this in some ways kind of skips ahead, but there's some say a negative perception of Springfield, and sometimes that's because it's the home of state government,
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
How's that play for you?
That's kind of interesting because we're not just the home of state government. We have 3 big medical facilities that we should be talking about and marketing. We're always going to market the Abraham Lincoln. We have a lot of festivals in the summertime that people come and enjoy. So and one of those is a Badass 5K. I'm not connected with them, but they start on Friday night and they end Saturday afternoon, and there's so many people that come down there. There's entertainment, there's food, there's drinks, and it's such a good time. And if we can market things like that and get our Springfield Convention and Visitors Bureau on board, and i.e. get those things marketed and connect that with the economic development so that we can market that to developers and say, look what we have going on all summer long. Every week we have something happening in Springfield. Wouldn't it be great for you to move your company here so you all can participate in these events? So it's a roundabout thing, and everybody has to talk well about Springfield. When we go out and we talk negatively about it, people listen to that. And when certain events happen, and people come to Springfield and they are looking for houses and schools, and one negative thing leads to another one, and people will make a decision based upon what they hear and how people are reacting to those comments.
You touched on a question we were going to get to a little bit later, but since you brought up tourism, how do you think the city does with tourism?
We do pretty good, and then we do bad. It depends on what the event is and how much we are putting ourselves into marketing that event. Again, it goes back to how well you're talking about something to make people want to see if they want to take part about it, because a lot of people make their decisions on how you are expressing yourself when you're talking about that event.
Yeah.
If we're out there and we're enthusiastic about the events that we're talking about that are happening in Springfield, then it's going to have a positive effect. But if we're talking negatively, then it's going to have a bad effect, and people aren't going to want to come and take part. I know, like I said, the Fat Ass 5K, when we had the Lincoln reenactment, Springfield was packed.
Yeah.
When we have the biggest event we have in Springfield every year is a city tournament, and that Saturday night, the culmination of the event, I look forward to going there and spending, the whole day. So how do we build upon those things that are positive and let other people know they're positive and they should come and take part? And as a matter of fact, we had a new pastor of our church, and she had never experienced a high school basketball game in that type of surrounding, and she was very excited about experiencing that.
How do you think the new director of the Convention Visitors Bureau is doing?
Let's see, that would be Scott Dahl.
Yeah.
Scott has been very good. He's, matter of fact, I think he with this Route 66 in the sign, which I think we could have communicated a little better on why we were purchasing the sign, but I think in the end, that sign has sparked interest in Iowa, and then we're connecting with Iowa now so we can promote Route 66 a little more, and it's had a positive effect, and I think Scott's doing a very good job with what he's doing. He's communicating more. We know what events are happening. We know.
I noticed he sends that email out now.
Yes, ma'am.
That's I hadn't seen that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, so Scott's Scott's different than the previous director, and we want to, when we do that, when we hire a new director, we want them to move in a direction that's going to be positive and encompass the good things that were happening and modify the not so good things so that we can keep Springfield moving in a positive direction.
Okay. Talk maybe a little bit about financial issues. Been a couple tight budget years, last few years. You guys have had to vote on some tax increases, particularly we're thinking sales tax, hotel, motel, telecom, and so we would just like to give incumbent members of council a chance to explain why you voted the way you did on those tax increases.
I voted for the hotel motel tax, and that's a tax that would benefit Springfield because when anyone comes from the outside and stays here, we get revenue from that, and that's not a tax that would be burdensome to the citizens of Springfield because in Ward 2 we have a lot of residents that are don't have a lot of financial means, but we could still gain by having the hotel motel tax. The mayor's wanted to increase a lot of other taxes, and I voted no on all of those.
Okay.
And so the one that I did vote for, which was a hotel motel tax, that's why I did vote for that, because it would be less burdensome on those people that are living in Springfield, but they could still benefit from them, i.e. through the Convention and Visitors Bureau, because they use that hotel motel tax to supplement the Convention and Visitors Bureau's revenue.
Okay. Seems like budget's a little more stable going into this next fiscal year, at least compared to the previous 2 years.
Yep.
What principles are you going to be looking at as you guys discuss the budget this month in regards to how you will vote? How will the principles you follow shape how you vote on it?
The creative financing that we put in place, if you notice, I use the fire contract that we just passed. In lieu of a raise, we're giving them bonuses for 2 years, and so those bonuses will not go toward increasing their average annual salaries, which would increase their average pension benefits that they would get. So, when we have good negotiations like that, and we've also included some sense of residency in that. So now new hires that are hired they must move into the city within the first 6 months of being hired. That's one thing that this administration, that City Council has been pushing for, and we're getting it. It's gotten input on a lot of the other union contracts, and the fire contract that was input on that we are going to approve next week.
We were talking before you got here about the fire contract and just the leadership that showed on both sides.
Yeah.
Is this something that's ever been done here before, where they will do something like take a bonus and forego that affecting their pension?
Well, it's since I work for the state, so it's something that they've been put a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So it's something that I was very excited to see in the fire contract. It allowed now with this, in essence, allows us is 2 years to keep those salaries at the same level, but then work on some other creative methods of financing to address the fire pension, because that pension cost is always going to be there, and we have to make sure that we are paying into the pension fund at the level we're supposed to, and hopefully within the next 2 years we can somewhat catch up to where we're supposed to be at.
Pensions are, as you know, eating up a larger share of the city's budget every year. It's now the entire share of property taxes for the city goes towards that. And we know you're limited at what you can do by the legislature. They set what you have to pay and
Correct.
things like that. But are there any types of pension reforms you would like to advocate for?
I think one thing that we can work on that hasn't been mentioned is have our mayor go to the legislative body, our representatives and senators, and ask them to look at changing our boundaries of the city, because I think when the boundaries were first drawn, I don't think anyone expected Springfield to grow the way it's grown, and we're basically landlocked by the Rivertons and Rochesters and Chathams. And if there's somehow that we could expand the corporate boundaries of Springfield, because people have Springfield addresses, but they pay into Rochester and Chatham and property taxes, and that's a big problem. But I don't think anyone has ever mentioned that to do that. I mean, we always go to the legislature and ask them for TIF funding and to expand our TIF districts or create a TIF district. So why don't we look at expanding the corporate boundaries of the city so that we can incorporate these subdivisions that have Springfield addresses, but we don't get the benefit of the property taxes.
And then that would give you more money to help pay for that.
That would give us more money to address our pension problem that we have, because a lot right now, I think it's 98% of our property taxes go toward the pensions.
So with that idea, would that require additional city services, fire protection, and police?
Well, now we basically cover those areas. We have an agreement. I know Chatham has a fire department, but we have an agreement with them that goes out so far. If you know that Piper Glen, they have Springfield addresses, and we provide fire protection to them.
There may be some infrastructure.
Yeah, some small infrastructure things, but it's nothing that I don't think that we could handle. And then with the additional revenue, that would help us to acquire additional equipment and additional manpower.
Some of the bigger issues, or at least discussions of topic that have been in the city for the last year or so. You touched on one of them, homelessness. That's definitely an issue in your ward. Is there anything else the city can do to address that?
I set out a couple nights with the homeless. Set out right here on 8th and Monroe, 7th and Monroe, 7th and Capitol, a couple nights. And, there's various problems with our homeless. Some people are out there because they want to be out there. Some people are out there because they don't know they're out there, and that creates a mental issue. And then, some people are out there because they really don't have anywhere else to go. I was talking and conversing. One guy put out more money than I carry around with me in a week, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He said, this is where I want to be. These are the people. These are my people." And I asked him the question, "Well, what do you all want?" And all of them to a T said they want a building. So we have to be careful, because some people don't want rules. They don't want to follow rules. And we do have shelters for people to go to. We do have places, where they can get something to eat. Washington Street Mission, where they can take a shower and get lunch, and where they have the bread line, St. John's bread line, where they can go and get a meal. And we have the warming center that we open up in the winter. And then we have contact ministries, and we have helping hands. So there are places for people to go, but people have to want to go. But then if they do get to these places and there's another problem that rears its head. Do we have people in those places that can get them to the right get the right services for them and get them in the right facility? We do have the homeless outreach team now with the officer, Mr. Chris Jones, that is out there actively in the field, and he's hopefully taking care of some of these people. But, I'm a religious person, and the Bible tells us that the homeless are going to be with us, and they're going to be with us always. So how do when I go to other places, they have homeless. You go to Las Vegas, there's homeless. My wife and I went to England, and there's homeless in England. There's homeless in Washington, D.C., so it's not just a Springfield problem, it's a problem nationally. I wish I could close my eyes and flick my fingers and come up with a solution, but you just can't. So you just have to handle what you can, and hopefully you feel like and you're reaching enough people where you're impacting enough people to make a difference.
When they say they want a building, do they want a shelter or do they want permanent housing?
They didn't say. They just said we want a building where we can go.
Okay.
Some of them don't want to be bound. I think part of the problem is folks don't want to be bound by rules. Some people are homeless because they want to be homeless. So how do you separate them out from the person that's out there and doesn't know that they're not homeless, or the person that can't do for themselves? And it's going to take a concerted effort. And we're not going to erase the homeless problem, but we can affect it, and hopefully we're affecting it, and to the point where we're getting those people that want a place to stay and something to eat and to get out of the elements. We're reaching those people.
Okay.
So early on, I think in your term, the whole thing with Horace Mann and the Salvation Army and Gold's Gym came up.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
That was like the first month.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
What an introduction to council.
Yes, it was.
So nice introduction,
Yeah,
right?
yes. And
So can you kind of replace some of that for us? Can you recall some of the
I
heated
think-
elements of that?
Well, the heated elements was miscommunication. I put it out there. The mayor took something and did it, and it was in my ward. And I felt very taken aback that the communication wasn't there between him and myself and Salvation Army and Horace Mann. As it turns out, it's okay, but sometimes going back to answer your question, I felt like I was left out of the loop. But I do have a good relationship with Captain Eddie now that they've since changed as Captain Eddie and his wife. They're running a very good facility. It's open. It's like a community center. They have various programs that they're running out of there, affecting the community. People can go and rent the gym out or play in the gym, and they're using it for basketball and volleyball and other things. So it turned out good, but I think some of the problems we have is with our communication. And if I think the part here that's left is a parking lot for Horace Mann, and across the street and a block south is where the new intermodal transportation facility is right now, where the mass transit has moved their buses, and it's working out very well. People have access to the bus now, and they don't have to cross the train tracks to get to the bus from a lot of the areas in Ward 2 on Adams, Washington, and Jefferson, and Monroe and Capitol Streets. And so they can get there, they can get to their bus, and they can get to whatever part of the city they need to go to.
As I recall, and I may be wrong, but one of the initial objections to the Gold's Gym conversion was the idea that it may be a portion of that used as shelter.
You're correct. The initial thing was we're going to move all of Salvation Army. There's 3 parts to Salvation Army, and I don't know if a lot of people know that. They have the store, and then they have the outreach, and they were going to move the outreach and the program center over there. And we have a park, Comer Cox Park, that's used very much all year round, with the exception of the cold months. And one of the concerns was, if you're using this as a program center, how are you going to affect the people that are coming there for services that may want to stop in the park? And the residents got together and they expressed their concerns, and I expressed their concerns, and we affected the change. So they taken that service part about the people with substance abuse and things of that nature was taken out of the Salvation Army, but they still have programs that they run through there, which are very good programs.
Right.
And I'm supportive of the Salvation Army and Captain Eddie and what he's doing there. So it worked out very good. But I think the other catalyst was the railroad relocation. The building that was there previously was going to be too close to the.
Right.
They had to put in a new set of tracks, which is another thing that's going to be good once they get completed. And we have all the underpasses complete at Ash and Laurel and South Grand, and then Jefferson and Madison. And if you ever drive through the one at Carpenter, you'll see what a wonderful project it was after they've gotten it complete. And it doesn't keep you from getting from 9th Street to 11th Street without having to stop for a train.
Right. So one of the things has been historically the division of East Side Springfield
Yes, sir.
and West Side.
Mm-hmm.
And how and you mentioned relocation.
Yes.
Is that going to change that kind of invisible boundary, or no?
You'll
How?
never change people's perception of what's been ingrained in them, but hopefully we can give them a different outlook once these underpasses get done. How we define it. You know, this is access from one side of Springfield to the other. Because I remember when we first got in office when I first got in office as an alderman, there was a train that was stopped on the tracks at 10th and Monroe Street, and it was there for a while, and some people had to get to court, and there was a picture of them was on the news. They were crawling under the train.
Oh man.
So, you know, if we can provide access by putting in these underpasses, which will allow traffic to flow without stopping, and you know, I think it will be a benefit, and we stop defining it as a barrier, but access points. You have different access points at Jefferson,
That's good.
and Madison, and Laurel, and South Grand, and Cook.
Governing Magazine recently did a series of articles about race inequalities in Midwest states, including Springfield.
ma'am.
Did you read that?
I was made aware of that.
Okay.
Yes,
I bring it up because they mention 11th Street as well
Yes.
as being that barrier. And I mean, it argues that Springfield has multiple race-based inequalities. Do you agree with that?
You know what? When you grow up in an area and you work hard, you know that there are things out there, but you don't tend to define yourself by those barriers that other people put in place. I come from a family of 7. My mother and father were married 61 years when my father passed, and my father told us always to get out and work hard and get what you want. You know, don't look for anybody to help you. And you know, my wife and I, you know, we raised our 3 children the same way, and I think, you know, it's what you instill in someone is what you define yourself as. And so I'm not defined by what someone puts in a magazine, but I do know that it does affect, and we do have some situations where people don't feel that they're getting the same services, don't feel like they're getting treated the same as other people. And you know, how do we work on that? Well, we work on that by getting ourselves in position where we can put our hand down and help pull somebody else up. And we get people to get involved in the process. And when you get people to get involved in the process and they find out what the process is, hopefully they can also spread that out and go back and alleviate some of these problems. But you got to get people interested in themselves, because motivation comes from within. I can tell you all I want to tell you, but until you get that spark flicking inside of you, you're not going to really get up and want to go for it.
Okay.
You know, part of that article is talks about the discrepancy in just median income between black population and white population.
Yes.
And housing, and that you had mentioned before, and another is police.
Right.
And that whole service, police service,
Right.
community service, I guess. So what's your sense of how that's going, and what else needs to be improved in that?
Well, the other article that came out is the one from the ACLU that says Springfield police arrest more minorities or they stop more minorities than they do whites. And, you know, it's something that I've talked to the chief of police about. He and I were at a seminar last week that was put on by the NAACP called the World Cafe. And they have become aware through the NAACP that, you know, there's this feeling out there that the police don't treat the blacks correctly, and so there's some sensitivity training that the police are going to go through and that they have gone through. And how does that affect minority residents versus white residents is we get these reports in the newspaper and we see all this stuff in the media, and we are portrayed through the media. Black folks are portrayed through the media as still to this day as having negative people and being negative, and we have to break that barrier down by having conversations, by introducing one person to the other, and getting people in the same room. And showing that it's not just black folks that are poor, there's some poor white folks. And then conversely, there are some black folks that are very rich and some white folks that are, very rich and well-to-do. And because the media keeps portraying these stereotypes, but is it always an accurate portrayal? One thing we have to do is, again, get people motivated to better themselves, but we also have to get people to give folks a chance. And it all starts with whoever's at the top and in charge. And in our case, it's whoever the mayor of the city is. If they promote diversity, then the city should follow.
And do you think the current mayor is promoting diversity?
You know what? I think in certain instances there's diversity. I talked to the chief of police and I talked to the fire chief, and in those top ranks, there's no minorities in there, and why? Is it because they don't qualify? Is it because they don't want the positions? We can want people to be in a position all we want, but if that person doesn't want to be there, then you can't beat a drum to have them there. So we have to make sure people are qualified, people want the positions, and then we have to make sure that if they are qualified and they want the position, that the position is there for them to they can have a chance to fulfill that position.
I want to be respectful of your time, and we're going over a little bit. Two really quick issues we want to ask all candidates about. What do you think should go on the Y block?
You know what? I'm kind of. We had a couple of proposals that have come forth. One was Flaherty and Collins, which was what the mayor the city put an RFP out. Flaherty and Collins answered it, but then it came back and the mayor said that their request for TIF funds was too great, and there was too dense for the apartments. Because I think they wanted to put 200 and the mayor wanted to cut that down to 100. Well, I think somehow we should have moved forward with that because that's what we asked for, came back with what we wanted, but then we changed in the middle of the RFP and we said, well, we don't want it anymore. So what do I want? I want something that's mixed use and commercial, real estate, and everyone's talking about a university presence down there. And it was UIS at first, and UIS is actively seeking to do something in downtown Springfield. But then someone came up with a proposal to have SIU, a law school down there. And we have to make sure that whatever we have comes down there can sustain itself. SIU, if you look at Indianapolis, they have the perfect model for what we're trying to do, which is Ooey Pooey, Indiana University, Purdue University, Indiana, which has a partnership in their school. Matter of fact, I have a daughter that graduated from the law school over there. So it can be done if we want them to join forces, but they have to want to join forces. So when we first got on the council, there was a Bluffstone that came, and they had a project, and we turned them down on TIF funds. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if a developer or builder wants to do something, they can do it without public input. So and that takes me back to Flaherty and Collins. If they really wanted to do that, they could have done the project without the TIF fund. So, I say that to if something wants to be done, someone can do it. So to answer your question, something that would benefit and bring people to downtown Springfield and make the Y block a revenue-producing block, and I say this in qualification, is I don't think the city of Springfield should be in the real estate business, so I don't think we should own the block anyway. I think we should sell the block and let whoever come in develop it to whatever standards they want with respect to the wishes of people around there, because there's, on that southwest corner, we have the town branch sewer, so you can't put anything that's really load-bearing there. But yet, we really need a place, I know I'm getting long on this, but we really need a place that is green space downtown. If you go to any big city, there's in the middle or close to the middle, they have a green space where people can go and sit in the park and just listen. Sit on a park bench or eat lunch and see the birds fly in, or enjoy the sunshine or sit in the shade. So that's what I would like. Okay.
The other one, should Capital Township be merged, and if so, with which entity?
There was a vote taken in the last election, and Sangamon County residents voted to have Capital Township be merged with the county. Okay. I think we kind of get confused. It was stated that the Capital Township's boundaries are coterminous with the city of Springfield, but we forget that the city falls within the county. And, the Capital Township's already providing services that are in place, and having served on the township board as a township trustee, I think they do a very good job of that. So I would leave it like it is, or if the city can come to some type of agreement with the county board to where it stays with them, but maybe certain services are shared, I would definitely look at a proposal of that nature.
Okay. And we appreciate you coming in today and invite you to give a brief closing statement as to why a voter should choose you for another term.
You should choose Herman Senor because I'm a lifelong resident of Springfield. I would like to increase the things I have started working on. I know there's always some things that you look at that you did that you could have done better, or that you haven't done that you could incorporate, and I'm asking you for that chance to work towards so we can make Springfield a better place. I don't like to categorize my ward, but Ward 2 is very diverse, and there are all levels of income in Ward 2 that represent the whole city of Springfield. So I would just like to keep making an impact and moving Springfield and Ward 2 forward. Thank you very much.